Hello, everybody. My name is Colton with Narrative Inc., and I am here today interviewing Adam, who works at Campfire but is also very ingrained into fantasy and writing. Adam, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Sure. My name's Adam. I work over at Campfire, like you just said. I do the UX and UI design for Campfire, which is basically UX is I say the button should go here, and UI is it should have these colors and this font. And then I send that off to the developers and wait a few months, and then I go complain when it's wrong and tell them how to fix it.
Right, right.
So it's super fun. I get to help design writing software, which as a person who's been writing since I don't know, I was 10, 11 years old. I didn't know that was a job I wanted, but it's super fun. Not only being able to help design a software, but also like for the people who are using it. And yeah, it's a good time getting to meet people in the community and take their ideas and kind of integrate it into the software and see it change over time.
Nice.
Aside from that, like I said, I've been writing for a long time. Published a short story collection in 2012, I believe. I'm not sure if it's available anymore.
Mhm.
Not that kind of fell through. Good experience, but it's the first book, you know.
Right.
The first thing that gets published is iffy.
Yeah.
Then there's I got a couple of short stories published early last year,
Okay.
in a collection by C.D. Taverner, big climate fiction collection where there's like a bunch of people with like climate-based superpowers and stuff. But of course, I couldn't do that because I had to be different. So I wrote about just some normal people doing normal things. Experimented with a little bit of like poetry within the prose, which was fun. Working on a new collection right now. I really like short fiction, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I'm working on a new collection right now, which is kind of a mix of slice of life, sci-fi, some things like that going on. And I also I illustrate maps for people and for myself. I enjoy. I just like maps. I guess it was never something I really like sought to do, but I just kind of kept doing it.
Yeah.
And now I've got a couple of maps in books that have recently been published, like Season of the Dragon by Natalie Wright, and in I think a few months, The Ascendature by Robin Dabney.
Robin Dabney. Okay.
Yeah, so also it's in The Ascendature by Robin Dabney. I've got a map coming out in her book as well, which I think launches around like April or something.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's been picking up lately for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and it's a neat thing to kind of do on the side when I want to work on a writing thing, but I don't want to write.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think it's underrated how many other things you can do to be productive within writing fantasy without actually writing the fantasy or sci-fi or whatever it is. I'm also a fan of short fiction, and it's like novellas, novelettes, just short stories are like something I really love. I struggle with bigger books and novels and stuff, but I guess you said you got started around 10, 11, 12 years old. What was your initial like jump or inspiration to start writing at such a young age?
Are you at all familiar with the Warriors series of books?
Yep. The cats. Yep.
Yeah, the cat books. I don't know how I got one. I think it was a gift or something.
Okay.
And I couldn't put them down
Okay.
There was just I genuinely think it was a mix of like the like each book had like a list of all of the characters in each
Mm.
like tribe within the woods. Each book had like a map that would change based on
Mm.
events in the story. And they were really short, easy to read, just like super fun.
Yeah.
And I've always loved animals. So all of those things kind of coalesced into kind of sparking a love for reading and writing eventually. And so all of my original stories were basically just rip-offs of that. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, and that was the one thing I was reading. So I just wrote
Yeah.
more of that.
Yeah.
It was a really good experience, though. Like,
Hmm.
I hated everything that I did, don't get me wrong. But it taught me what I didn't like. And it gave me a space to try different things. And over time, I kind of branched away from that into whatever other media I happened to be reading or watching at the same time.
Okay.
And eventually realized I was in a destructive pattern and moved
Mm.
away from that a little more and started like looking for different blogs for writing advice and that's kind of how I ended up finding eventually the world building magazine community
Mm.
because I didn't have people to talk about writing with too much in my personal life.
Yeah.
So I had to go out and find people. And just sort of happened across this community who was trying to create educational resources about world building.
Gotcha.
And that turned into like a 4-year project.
Dang. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, how old were you when you started getting into World Builders magazine?
That was a while after I started writing.
Okay.
I was probably in like my mid 20s,
Okay.
roughly.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
It was around like 2000. It was 2017, I think, when
okay.
that kicked off.
Gotcha.
Something like that.
Okay. I mean, that's a really good time to find and start building a writing community because a lot of people, they're still exploring what they even like to read and write at that time. Because that's a very transitional time in their life. But that's really cool. And you mentioned that you've done a lot of interviews and have like interacted with those people a lot. What
Yeah.
type,
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say like, what type of influence do they have on evolving your own writing experiences?
Oh, a ton. So right as I started to get involved in that project, I had come out of college, which all the creative writing courses there, I'm sure you've heard or are aware, it's all focused on literary fiction, contemporary fiction, stuff like that. Genre is fine, but you probably shouldn't do it.
Right.
Hint, hint. That was very much the environment that existed in, and that was fine for me. I do enjoy literary fiction. I really appreciate those classes for showing it to me because
Yeah.
I probably never would have picked it up before.
Right.
But now it's like something I try to weave into my reading schedule where I can sort of between fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, stuff like that. So that aside, like that's sort of what I was coming out of. And then World Building Magazine was a way for me to kind of get back to genre fiction and figure out what I had missed and what I should be checking out. And when I started interviewing for them, just kind of by default, because no one else wanted to talk to people,
Right.
I started interviewing for World Building Magazine in those issues. And whenever I didn't know like who to reach out to, I would ask for suggestions, and all the people on the team would kind of throw their favorite authors at me or their favorite like content creators and stuff. And so like, we brought Michael J. Sullivan onto the podcast. Wow. And we had Ed Greenwood show up one time. We had Martha Wells came on. I'm naming like all the people I didn't personally talk to, but right. I communicated with to get them on the podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
Brian McClellan was a big one for me.
Oh, cool.
He's my favorite author. And I just kind of reached out to him on a whim, and he agreed to chat, despite the fact that he did not have a lot of free time at that moment.
Gotcha.
And so that was a really cool one for me, is like I got to talk to my favorite author, and I got to do it again for Campfire a few years later. So really just having a great time.
Yeah. In my experience, and this goes to you and Jackson and so many other authors, authors and writers are pretty nice people. I haven't really met anybody that's like mean or just says no outright and says no, I don't talk to people. Like I think it's because for the most part, we all like being supportive and creating stories, and so I think most people are pretty.
Yeah,
nice
I think
about
this is the kind of industry you sort of have to be.
Yeah,
right, because it's not very high pay. You have to work your ass off and get really lucky in order to break even. So I think this is like the kind of thing that promotes having a community, because you want people to view you favorably, and if you help someone else, they might help you in the future. And that's very transactional language, of course, but at the end of the day, that's kind of where everything stands, and that's not a bad thing.
Nope.
I think that's really positive, because there are so many industries where everyone's like safeguarding their secrets and clinging on for dear life to whatever patents they have, and it's like, no, everybody's going to do their own story, and we're going to help each other out with it. And whenever somebody releases something, we're going to celebrate it. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's and we're not tech bros, and we're not just like Bitcoin and all those things where you're like, your secrets are so important and only, and if it works for you, it'll work for everybody. No, it's art. What we're creating is art. And it's like, art is so subjective. I might not like your story, but maybe I have a friend who does. Right. And and that's the same with so many other things within art and stuff. But so I think it's, like you said, we kind of have to be supportive to make it work. And the more we help out each other, the more everybody else just has a good time. So that's been a
really big revelation to me. Not that I didn't think that was there.
Yeah.
But in doing all these interviews for Rebuilding Magazine and now Campfire, some podcasts along the way, and visiting everyone at Dragonsteel this year, my first time going there. The community is just consistently extremely welcoming. And if anybody's turns you down for something, it's because they've already stretched themselves too thin. And then there's a good reason for that. Yeah. But generally speaking, it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I love those points, and I'm glad that you understand that, because a lot of people within writing and stuff, they're just writing. They're not always going out of that box to try and network and stuff. But I think it's really important to do that, not only to learn from others, but to help improve your own skills of communication and whatnot. But
and of course, it depends on what your goals are. If you want to publish, you have to do that.
Right.
If you just want to write to put your stories down on paper and you don't really care who they get shared with, if anyone, then that community aspect doesn't necessarily matter as much.
Yeah.
But I mean, for anybody who does want to share their work, I mean, that's networking is such a bigger part of it than I initially realized.
I don't think a lot of authors really realize that. I say this a lot, but I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups and other just groups of indie authors who they write their book, they publish it, and then they're like, why aren't I getting any sales? Or I don't know what to do next. I'm like, oh, guys, you have to you're running a business now, basically. You have to do even just the bare minimum just to get it out there. Just work a little harder and you can do it. And it's a lot to do, which is why I love meeting people and getting help and exploring helping others as well, just giving out as much advice as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So my next question, and you mentioned it, is fantasy maps. How did you even get started with that? And I guess that's my first question, is how did you even get started with that?
I just like maps, man. It's really not any more complex than that.
Okay.
I was after the Warriors stage, I got into the Game of Thrones stage, and I was just writing stories like that, and I needed maps for those, of course. I remember I got a book full of watercolor paper,
Cool.
and I would watercolor my maps in there, and just like
Wow.
I had like one big book, like, you know, I had one large book of watercolors that was just the same map, slightly revised every single time. And so if you flip through it, it was just the same image with like slight variations of
Yeah.
like peninsulas changed, or like adding more waterways or islands or something.
Okay.
Digital art has really helped me a lot.
Yeah. It's such a good tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of kept doing it over the years, making my own maps. And then through the magazine community, some people there I volunteered with started asking me, hey, would you mind making one for me? And I was just like, why? But sure. And so I started a little bit with that, with some maps for people who are running like D&D campaigns.
Nice.
And then recently have kind of transitioned into those maps I was talking about earlier for people like Natalie and Robin, who are publishing books.
Right.
Sometimes self-publishing, sometimes I think it was Robin who said, my publisher didn't ask for this, but I want it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I still don't 100% know if it will be in the book, but I think she convinced them. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, those have all been such fun projects. Yeah. Occasionally, I'll just like go on socials now and be like, hey, I've got some free time. Does anybody have a map that they want me to make?
Yeah.
And I've got like one or two regulars who will come back to me, I don't know, once a year or something for whatever new project they've been cooking. I'm working on one right now that's based on a big island in Maine that has a whole bunch of like little nooks and crannies and bays and everything. And the person who is commissioning the map, he was visiting it with a friend, and they got lost, and they could not figure out where they were because of all these like little bays and inlets and rivers, and it made every little part of the lake just look identical. And he was like, this would be such a fun D&D campaign to have a lake that is constantly like shifting the position of the land and the islands. And so he came to me, he's like, I want a map and the landscape needs to be constantly changing. And I was like, it's a 2D non-animated image. Sir, you need to calm down.
Oh, man.
But it's been a really fun project. I've enjoyed getting to work on other people's stuff as well as my own now. So
that is really cool. So I think most fantasy readers, maps are just kind of a thing, right? It's just fun to see the world. It helps you kind of immerse yourself and whatnot. All the classics, Tolkien, and all the modern ones. Yeah, like I said, George R.R. Martin with Game of Thrones. Sanderson obviously loves maps. It's a big thing for him. But for creating maps and getting started, if they wanted to do their own stuff, of course they should commission you. But if they want to do their own stuff,
I don't have that much time.
Okay. Just wait.
I mean, reach out if you want. I might be free, but
okay. I actually might come to you soon because I have something coming up. It's a fantasy western, so we'll talk. We'll talk about it.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's the main thing I'm working on right now. But what are some tools and resources to get started with making their own fantasy maps? Just like from the very beginning, they have no idea where to start.
So if you've got no illustration experience at all, you just need a map.
Yeah,
and you need it quick. I would recommend a couple of tools. Asgar's fantasy map generator is a really good one that is totally free to use. It's open source. It's a little complicated to look at the first time, but once you get the hang of the tools, it's very quick to use.
Cool.
Only downside, and I'm going to say, and this is for all three maps that I'm going to mention.
Okay.
Or all three mapping tools. Yeah. They all kind of look the same. I mean, that's kind of the nature of a tool like a map generator or a map design tool, is like you're using pre-existing textures, pre-existing templates and stamps and different stuff like that so they all kind of end up looking very similar.
Gotcha.
You can do some fun stuff with that, but when there's only like 10 path options, and 8 of them are like locked behind a paywall sometimes, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, true.
But on the flip side, it makes it really easy. So if you're just looking for like a way to sketch your map out that is easy and fun, these like all of these are really good.
Gotcha.
So Asgars is the first one. That one's totally free. Definitely recommended for like if you just want to get broad strokes down and you don't care too much about visuals, especially. Then there's Incarnate, which has a free plan and a paid plan. It's a little more complex, like you're actually drawing with that. But they make it really simple and easy. They have a lot of stamps that they have ready to go for you. So like the thousands of ready to use images of castles for your locations and trees for your forests and all kinds of stuff like that. You can do some really fun stuff with that. Like I've used it a little bit. It's a really cool tool to just like turn your brain off and like sketch out a map and plop some images on it. And like in 20 minutes, you can have a pretty decent looking thing.
Sweet. Okay.
Final one that I usually recommend is Wonder Draft, which is very similar to Incarnate, except it is a offline desktop app. Cool. So you don't need an internet connection to use it. It's a little bit more along the lines of like a Photoshop kind of thing, just like specialized for maps.
Yeah,
I really like the way that it makes coastlines. It makes it really easy to like roughen them up, and so you don't have like really straight lines.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very similar to Incarnate, just instead of a monthly fee for all of the like fun extras. There is no free plan, and it's like $20 and you get everything forever or something.
That's nice.
So yeah, like if you imagine making a lot of maps over a long period of time, maybe give that one a shot.
Okay.
That I've played around with a little bit too. Again, in like 20 minutes, you can have a really nice looking map. Yeah. It'll look similar to some other ones, but it's good. It's okay. I personally use Affinity Designer, which is
I love Affinity.
It's really good. Like it's, for anyone who doesn't know, it is very similar to the Adobe suite, except it is a one-time purchase, and you get free updates for as long as that version is available. I think like they were on version 1 for like 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So like you're going to be good for a while. And there's a iPad version as well if you don't have a laptop desktop.
Yep.
But basically the way that I make maps on it is I'll create a vector layer for all of the like main landscapes, so your continents, your islands, and all that kind of stuff, and then like cut out the lakes and the rivers and the oceans. And then that, because it's a vector which is built not on pixels, it's built on math, it scales really cleanly.
Gotcha.
So if I make a world map, for example, and I've done this for clients, if I make a world map and then they come back to me a while later and they say, I want a map of just this one part of it, I can just zoom in on it and I don't deal with any pixelation, and I just have to like redraw the illustration above it.
Yeah.
But like part of the work is already done for me. So it makes it really nice and easy to edit things along the way. Yeah. I don't know anyone else who works that way. I think it's a little bit of a unique process, just because most people just tend to draw the immediate thing in front of them. But like I said, like that's prone to, if I want to zoom in, zoom out, or like change the scale in some way, that becomes a little bit of a problem.
Right. That makes sense though. I would say whether it's writing, art, whatever, most artists have their own unique take that may not be the best, but it works really well for them. And that's part of the fun of art, right?
Yeah, I also just like really grew to enjoy Illustrator when I was using it and like working with vectors. For a while, I just did vector art. Like I do a series of self-portraits of myself. And originally it was like just vector art of my face, and it was so time consuming. But the couple that I did before I gave up, I still do the series. I don't do it in vectors anymore.
Gotcha.
Those I'm proud of how they turned out. Just kind of like of the sheer effort that it takes to draw in vectors. It's not like drawing with a pen. It's like you have to individually lay every point on the shape and like get the curves right. And yeah.
Nice. No, that's really cool. It's really fun to hear about your process. I mean, it's really smart because, like you said, the way that you do the maps specifically, it doesn't pixelate, especially if you have that whole world. I mean, that's really smart. You're probably saving a lot of time just by doing that. So that's really good.
Yeah. Whenever I need to revisit something, it's nice. I had someone recently reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, I might need a new one for the next book," and I was like, "Cool. Is it the same place?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right. I'll give you a discount, I guess."
Yeah. I'll give it to you tomorrow. I'm basically done already.
Yeah. Right now I'm working on some maps for this sci-fi short story collection I'm working on.
Right.
And I'm having a lot of fun. Like normally I do fantasy maps, but I'm having a lot of fun playing with like different glow effects and stuff right now.
Yeah.
To try and like play with the sci-fi, like almost punk nature of the stories.
That's cool.
And so it's like it's very inspired by like the Cyberpunk 2077 world maps and different things like that. I'm pulling from like art references from like Neuromancer and things. Nice. And like it's almost like a night view of a road map with like a few extra lighting effects going on. It's very fun.
That was really cool. Yeah, I right now I'm really focused on my fantasy stuff, but in the next couple of years I really want to do cyberpunk and more sci-fi stuff because it's just something I really want to explore. I'm just too invested right now in my current stuff, but that's awesome.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah. So I kind of want to shift gears a little bit to Campfire itself. My first question is, how did you get started with Campfire? How did you get your job there? What introduced you to it?
I just stumbled in the door and they kept me.
Nice, good to know.
That's pretty much it. Like, I met them through the magazine, World Building Magazine. Okay. Fun background to that. I think it was Jackson who emailed us asking to like get space on the magazine because we would just like affiliate the magazine with people. Right. We'd give them a mention in it, and they would put our name like on their website somewhere or something. It was, very handshake agreement. Yeah. But he reached out to us, and I was like, nobody reaches out to us. Yeah. We're too small for that. This is a scam. Like clearly Campfire is not real.
Well, it is. Let's be fair. It is Jackson. So I understand why you thought it was a scam.
I mean, you gotta be careful around him.
Yeah. No, I interviewed that guy, man. He's scary. He's terrifying. I was like, I was scared the whole time.
So yeah, long story short, figured out they were actually a real company. Oh wow. And weren't trying to scam us. And fast forward a few years, I am in the middle of a career change, and trying to figure out what to do next and reaching out to a whole bunch of people. And then I remembered, I've got this connection at like Campfire, and I reached out to them, and they weren't looking for a UX UI designer. But I reached out anyway because I went to their site and I thought I had a couple of ideas that could help them. Yeah. And I was just like, hey, I had a contact through the magazine. I was like, who do I reach out to? He got me in touch with Jason. And then I think within like 2 days, I got into a call with him.
Wow.
So I really was just like pure, just dumb persistence. I just literally like every day I would email minimum 8 people. Wow. About looking for a job.
Yeah.
And they happened to be one of the people I emailed one day. And just by chance and luck, I guess, they didn't have anyone in this role. And I think that for Jason, especially, like he's in charge of the company, but he's also the developer. Or
Right.
at the time, he was like the main developer. He still puts everything together, but we've got a lot more people now. So I think for him, it was very appealing. Like, I'm putting words in his mouth, but I suspect it was very appealing to have somebody to design everything so that he didn't have to think about it too much. He just had to make it.
Right.
Which, of course, free.
Oh, sorry. Finish that.
I was just going to say, of course, like that frees him up for all the other things that he ends up having to do for like running the company.
Right.
And so that's been something that I've been very proud of for like Campfire as a whole is like, you know, a lot of startups don't bother with this, or they'll like hire someone for a few months to design their app and then kick them out the door.
Yeah.
We are constantly trying to reimagine, improve, like just try and find something that works for everybody as much as we can. I made a comment to him the other day. We were talking about showcasing something early, and I wanted to put a not final sticker on it just to like let people know it could change. And he's like, nobody cares about that. Get rid of it. I'm like, but Jason, I don't want to give people bad information. I don't want to show them a design that's not ready. And he goes, Adam, we are never done designing. Everything is a work in progress. I was like, oh no, you got me.
Oh man.
Yeah. Although great job security, I gotta say.
True. Hey, if it breaks now, you're the one that fixes it. So you know, might as well do it. Like,
I'm constantly making little tweaks. Yeah, that's how I got started. Is I just emailed them kind of on a whim. They didn't have a job offer posted, which thank God, because we posted a job offer or job opening for a designer last year, and oh my God, it was exhausting. Like we got over 2,000 applicants on LinkedIn alone.
Wow.
In like a week. Like it's genuinely one of the most exhausting a couple of weeks of my life. Because I went through and I tried to, at the very least, if somebody gave me a portfolio, which that was the bare minimum I asked for.
Right. Yeah.
At least 1,000 people did not.
Cut it in half, so right then and there.
Yeah. So the other 1,000, I at the very minimum looked at their portfolio. And I tried to contact everyone I could. And it was awful. So I lucked out in part because I wasn't dealing with any competition.
Right. Hey, there you go. Just knock down the door and just walk in and be like, hey, what's up? I'm here to stay now.
That could be a whole different podcast. Is like the UX UI industry and like the hiring in it is just, it's insane, man.
I can assume. I can only assume. I do not envy that position of having to go through 2,000, even 1,000, or even hundreds of people trying to get a job. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Dang, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if anyone's like looking for advice on that and like getting a job and stuff, I just be persistent.
Right.
Email at least 8 people a day. Most of them are going to tell you no. Most won't even respond. If they don't respond, you email them back and say, "Hey, it's been a couple weeks. Just didn't know if that got lost in your inbox.
Right. Was
hoping to get a meeting with you." Like you got to be persistent. And when they say no, you be respectful and say thanks for your time. But like. You got to treat it like a hustle, basically.
Well, really, like, and a lot of jobs and stuff, like networking is so important, and being persistent, like you said, is so important, because I'm sure a lot of people, like, I'm sure you guys get tons of emails every day between your whole team about so many different things that it's like, if you don't see it the first time, you may never see it, or it'll be months or who knows, years later before you see it.
People post on our Discord and they're like, "Hey, can you do this? How do I do this? I'm having an issue with this problem."
Right.
And it's like, Discord moves so fast. None of us will ever see this unless you are lucky. Yeah. Like you have to like go through the proper channels and like we'll get to you, but it might take a minute.
Yeah. And like you guys, I mean, obviously it does go very fast. There's conversations happening constantly. But you guys do a pretty good job. And like you specifically, I see your name, I see you interacting with the community a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I've chosen to like stick with Campfire and like why I really appreciate you guys so much. One of the reasons is because you guys are talking to us and you are making sure that things are going as smoothly as possible. Hey, we are working on that. So I really appreciate that and why I think it's going to last longer than others where it's just, hey, here's the product, have fun type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, in my role specifically, you know, it's good for me as a designer to know what people are having trouble with, what they really like, what they wish was different. Like all the conversation that happens around that is really important for me to be aware of. Yeah. I would love to like say every day I go check it out a little bit and poke my head in. I can't. There's no time. But I do try to like keep an eye on like in the channels about Campfire, and like writing on it and publishing on it. What are people saying about that? And so I don't have those muted. True. But we've also invested in the community. Just I think like with a writing tool, you kind of just benefit from being a part of the community that you create. And so we've recently brought on Emery as well, who is every day she's on Discord talking with people about their projects, and not always like about the product, but also just like, hey, what are you working on? Let's talk about like how do we help you write your story and stuff. Right. So that's been really helpful as well, just to like have somebody who is aware of what's going on there a little bit better, and helping out. Yeah. No,
that's really awesome. So as we're kind of getting towards the end of the interview here, I have two more questions. The first one is, what is something that you're really excited about coming to Campfire either this year or just sometime in the near future that you can talk about, of course?
We're pretty open about what we can talk about. I usually muzzle myself more than anything.
Gotcha.
Just because like I said before, I don't want to give people bad information. But we released our like plans for the year recently, on the blog. And one of the big things we talked about there is our mobile app coming out soon. We already have one for writing, but we have a new one for reading coming out very soon. I think the beta start. When does this podcast come out? What are you thinking?
Within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so by the time that you are listening to this or watching it, the mobile app is probably either out or like within a week or two. It's coming out like March 2024. Okay. So we're going into beta first, and we're going to bring in some people who've applied to be a part of that. Cool. Make sure everything's working well. We've like within the last couple of days alone, just internal testing, Pedro and Lucas have fixed like 50 small things, just like sometimes they're bugs, sometimes it's like stuff that didn't quite match the design or like didn't get interpreted correctly. Little quality of life things. So I'm really excited about that. Like one of the big issues we've had with reading on Campfire is like we built this web reader, which is really nice and accessible, but a lot of people want to read on their phones, on their tablets, on whatever else. So this solves that problem. And we've already got a couple hundred people signed up to just do the beta. So I'm really hopeful that, it's going to be a fun way to enjoy stories and all the bonus content in them. And, get more people indoors so that the authors on there can start making more royalties and everything. Because at the end of the day, that's what I care most about. So I think that's like the really big thing. We've also got audiobooks coming out this summer, which is really exciting. I'm personally working on the planning for how authors will set that up. And then our other designer, Denise, is working on how readers will listen to those. And as they are listening to audiobooks, they will still be able to reveal like behind the scenes extras of the story, just like you do right now with the ebook version. So like you hit the end of a chapter where a new character is introduced. Boom, you've got that character's profile. So it's very fun. A couple of changes coming to the writing side as well. We're improving the text editor, and some navigation stuff is coming this month, and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Dang. Yeah, this is a big year for Campfire. Some really big things coming. I mean, just the publishing and helping writers, just that alone is such a big step in the right direction that I think not just as a
if I
writing
can be
app,
a little,
yeah,
if I can be a little sales pitchy for a second,
of course,
we
go for it.
we are offering authors 80% royalties.
Right.
That's going to include ebook. That includes all of the bonus content that you offer. That includes the audiobook coming later this year. So really trying to give people a space where they can share their stuff, exclusive contracts, and just share all of the content that they want to, and some bonuses for the readers who really enjoy it.
Yep.
And give them some kickback so that they can keep doing that.
Yep. No, I think when I saw that come out in the summer of 2023, I was like, shoot, I got to get something done so I can get on there. I haven't gone there yet, but I'm like 80% royalties, and you can be as salesy as you want because I am so pro Campfire, haha. But no, it's so cool. That's just completely unheard of. Yeah, I'm in a little bit of crusade against Amazon and Audible and all those places. I won't go too much into that, but anyway. But yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. So definitely check that out, guys. Not only to be a writer on that, but also to support the writers that are on there. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. Well, then that's
we've got a lot
fantastic.
of authors, a bunch of indie authors who have already joined us.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of pretty much every flavor of genre fiction you can think of. We've got a little bit, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, some horror, paranormal, all kinds of stuff. And it's going to just continue to grow, especially as mobile app comes and more readers shuffle in. It's sort of a self-feeding cycle, I guess.
Yep, there you go.
At least hopefully it is.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if it's not now, it will be. It will be. Okay, my last question is, what have been some of your favorite media that you've consumed from 2023? And it could just be anything, not that it is from the year 2023, but that you experienced or consumed in 2023.
Yeah. So one of my favorite, I have to shout out Brian McClellan because he is, as I said, my favorite author.
Yep.
I read his novella Montego, which is a spin-off of his most recent series with Tor. I read that on the plane ride back from Dragonsteel.
Okay.
Delightful. It's just it's a maybe 100-page story, just super easy and quick to get through. Yeah. I would not read it on its own. Gotcha. It kind of requires the context of everything else. Right. I also picked up a short story collection by Susan Palumbo called Skin Thief.
Interesting. Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's a lot of. It's hard to describe, I think, because it's a little bit of everything to me. It's contemporary stories, it's horror and speculative fiction. There's like some Trinidadian folklore woven into some of the stories, and like Canadian wilderness stuff going on. It's a lot of things all at once, and there's one whole story all about mermaids, which it was not. I didn't expect it, but all right. But it's really good. Like every single story in there is written so well, and they all kind of like, they don't connect through the plot, but they all have very similar messages and themes. Talking, like, a lot of them talk about sort of figuring out who you are, or feeling like an outsider, or a lot of self-discovery stuff, which is really cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Lots of good stuff. Like you said earlier, you like short fiction. I'm a huge fan of short fiction, so I'll definitely have to check those out. Awesome.
Yeah, I realized as I was thinking about this earlier that all of the books that I could think of that I really enjoyed were very short. For something a little different, Blue Eye Samurai rocks.
I have heard. I haven't got to it yet, but I've heard it's
great, man.
So great. I heard it's amazing.
It's very violent. If you're not up for that, then don't watch it. But if you're okay with a dark, like, revenge story, it's excellent.
Yeah. No, I've heard fantastic things about it. People are like, oh yeah, it's the new Arcane, just in terms of like the splash and how good it is.
It's a very different story to Arcane.
Right.
I think it matches it in like quality and animation. It took me a minute to get into it. Like I think the first couple episodes, they're a little slower, but it picks up real fast.
Gotcha.
And by like 4 or 5, I was hooked.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Nice. Well, that is fantastic. So thank you so much, Adam, for coming on and doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. It's really great to hear insights into writing and fantasy, and also just your experience with Campfire itself. Yeah, thank you so much. Is there any last minute things you would like to plug and talk about as we're finishing up here?
If this is coming out in a couple weeks, I might be looking for either beta readers or ARCs.
Okay.
I don't know. It's very much in flux, but I'm working on a story that I would like to share, and it'd be cool if I could find a few more people to check it out. If you're checking this out in 2025, you're checking out the Narrative Inc. backlog.
Yeah.
I don't know. Google Adam Bassett book. Maybe something will come up.
Yeah. Cool. Hopefully not another bad Adam Bassett book comes out between
hopefully
now
not.
and then.
I don't know. The only other one that I know is like a glass manufacturer or something. So
okay.
Maybe avoid the books that are about glass.
Gotcha. Hopefully there's no tragedy between now and then.
Yeah.
So well, we don't want to lose you, Adam. We want to keep you around. Awesome. Okay. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Again, Adam, thank you so much. Check out his stuff. It'll be linked in the description below, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.